Hi everyone and welcome for another Apitherapy video. This time we'll be talking about the situation of the bees in the world, but in a very specific way. You probably have heard that bees are kind of endangered. Lots of them are dying every year. Beekeepers have some problems and so on. And you probably have heard many reasons for this to happen. For the bees themselves to be kind of endangered, to be vulnerable to the actual situation in the world. And most of the reasons we usually hear are how the beekeepers are taking care of the bees are big problems. The diseases of bees are increasing with time in most places in the world. And also, of course, pesticides is a really big one there. And this is the kind of things we usually hear about. Well, yesterday at the National Honey Show that was usually happening in England and UK every year, but this year, since there's the COVID situation, it was actually given in the form of a webinar, so people could participate even though if they were not attending physically in UK, of course. And I actually participated into a few of those conferences that were given there at the National Honey Show. And one of them, my favorite one, was given by Mr. Étienne Bruneau, which is an extraordinary person involved at many different levels with the bees, specifically with the quality of bee products. And he's involved at so many different levels. I don't have all his titles with me right now. I should have done some research, but I don't have those. But he's someone really amazing. His work is fascinating. He's really into the core, the true reasons of what is happening with the bees right now. And quality of bee products is a really good one. So there's actually one reason why bees are endangered that is not mentioned usually. It goes, under the radar. Nobody sees that. Very hidden. And it's actually, right now, it's been placed as number one priority for big international organization trying to help the situation of bees and beekeepers around the world. And what would that reason be? You might wonder. What is it? And the answer is very simple and plain. It's actually fake honey. Fake honey is it's actually fraud to create fake honey, and the fake honey nowadays looks so much like real honey that all the scientific tools, devices that are supposed to be able to detect fake honey, nowadays they are not able to do this anymore because the fraud people evolved faster than the devices, the technology to detect fake honey. So they are getting really good at adding everything that is needed to make that fake honey look exactly like real honey. And now they can produce a specific type of flower honey coming from a specific place in the world, and that honey will look exactly the same as the real one, but it would be fake. So they are getting really, really advanced, the fraud people. And this concern is so big that they are estimating right now that in a few years we could be losing up to 10 million beehives in Europe only. And this is a real problem because when you produce fake honey at a very, very low price and you export it worldwide, like China is doing, for example, and everybody knows that. Well, not everybody, but this is known today that this is happening. Well, of course, all the producers of real honey, they won't be able to compete price-wise, and they won't make as much money, so they won't do as good advertising, and they're not in business anymore, so they have to close the doors, and beekeepers are having a really hard time surviving selling only honey. Now, Of course, if you know about apitherapy, you can also get involved into pollen, fresh bee pollen, propolis, and everything we're talking here on the channel about apitherapy. And that gives a greater value to beekeepers. And it creates a great variety, diversity of incomes for them as well. And it also helped to evolve the situation with apitherapy, and it encourages everybody to do more research on the use of bee products for health. And it's really nice because propolis has this great potential of replacing so many antibiotics. So there's a real potential happening with apitherapy, but worldwide we're not there at all. For some people that are really searching and that love natural health, medicine, natural products for health, and so on. And then, of course, for them, they know a bit about apitherapy usually, some more than others. But for the usual person in the world, if you talk about bees, they'll be thinking about honey only. And so honey is the main source of value for beekeepers. And since that fake honey is just taking so much space worldwide right now, real beekeepers are having a hard time to make the money they need to live. And this is very serious. And some beekeepers already are stopping producing. There's huge change happening. So this is major. Actually, it's number one problem with the bees nowadays. And it's being seen right now as even more serious than pesticides. I'm not saying we have to, we don't have to take care of pesticides anymore. We don't have to trying to, fight against pesticides and specifically some pesticides. But of course, we have to keep doing this. And same thing with, how ethical is the beekeeping techniques of beekeepers and all this. All the usual aspects of the bees being endangered, they remain. They're still there. But there's one that we usually don't talk about that is actually getting to number one reason of why our work as humanity with the bees is going down. And it is fake honey. Yeah, that topic is getting that serious. This is just flabbergasting. Anyway, not a good news because it's another problem for beekeepers. It's another challenge. And that shows us that our connection with the bees, with all the teachings of the bees, everything I'm talking here on the channel, all this is a little bit fading away. So if you want to keep this and dig more into all that aspect of the bees, we have to be conscious of that fake honey. So what can we do? Because fake honey is, imagine, if scientific devices are not able to identify fake honey, don't think you will be. Don't think that, because it's crystallizing this way, it means it's fake honey. Don't even try to see some tricks to identify fake honey. Just think that the best scientific devices that exist in the world, there's not a single one of them that is able to identify fake honey all the time, 1%, all the time. If you combine all different tests possible for honey, we think that we're still able to identify fake honey. But who would use all the different tests? It's so costly. It almost never happens. So you can be sure that fake honey is out there. In most countries, I would be very surprised if there's even one country not having fake honey. If they don't import anything, maybe. But any country importing honey, I would bet that there will be some fake honey there. And even if, it's been said that it's good honey, it's been tested, let's say, I would not believe that actually just by a test nowadays. So that being known, what should we do? I'm not saying this for you to stop eating honey. No, we don't have to promote that kind of idea. We have to keep a strong relationship with the bees and make that relationship more beautiful day after day and make it nicer and nicer all the time. So what can we do to help this situation? Very simple. Source local honey and talk to your beekeeper and ask. There's one question you should be asking where you buy your honey from all the time is, what do you do when you're sold out of your honey? And if the person says, I'm never sold out, well, this is actually suspicious. Is that person actually importing some honey? Because some beekeepers do actually. That exists. So if that person is never sold out, it's a sad thing because of it's either a really bad reason or let's say just sad reason. If it's really bad, it's because that person is actually importing honey. And very often it will be fake honey because that person want to make money and fake honey is cheap. So that happens sometimes. Another reason is because nobody know about the products. People buy the usual stuff that is very cheap, in the big stores, and nobody really look at his products. And he's having the real thing, while you go on the market and you have fake honey. It's not advertised as fake honey, of course, huh? It's hidden. So you won't realize, and don't believe the tests that are being done. People saying, oh, in Canada there's no fake honey. I don't believe this at all. I'm sure there's tons of fake honey, but it's so well hidden that we don't know. And it's the same for every country. So we have to be very careful. Now, some countries are much better than others. That being said, be careful all the time, and please go see your local beekeepers and work with them and watch yourself. If you see that they are selling everywhere their honey, watch out. It might be a sign that, they do import some weird honey, or we don't know exactly what they're doing. But it's good to know more about your honey. Encourage traceability, real traceability. We have to be more aware of this. This is actually a way of actually saving the bees, believe it or not. Because if we go on a track where we work more with fake honey than real honey, with time, this will just increase because there's more money being done this way. So that tendency will just keep increasing all the time. The real beekeepers won't make money anymore. So either they will convert into a fake honey seller, or especially since you won't even notice the difference because it tastes very similar in many cases. So either they convert into fake honey producers, or they just stop and they're out of business with time. And this is a real problem we're facing right now because fraud honey is getting so, let's say, well done that we cannot find out anymore if it's fake or not by scientific analysis. So I hope it gives you a good idea of what you can do to help that situation, and keep that in mind. This is getting worse than pesticides, worse than how the beekeeper is doing his job. This is getting number one priority because that is actually bringing down more of the beekeeping than one could think. This is really big, and I'm not saying this to disgust you from working with bee products at all. I'm saying this for you to encourage you to be involved with your local beekeepers, to really get into the real topic and ask the real questions and have a real feeling of trust with your beekeeper. This is very important, and this is actually good for everywhere in the world. You should know the source of your honey. Ask for traceability. There you go. That's the thing to do. And you might think, oh well, there's more consumption of honey in a country than the production, so we have to import. Fine with me. If we are obliged to import, okay. But think about it. Think that let's import when we'll be 100% sold out locally. Let's first buy locally, so that will actually encourage beekeepers to grow more, the real ones, the real beekeepers, to grow more, to have more beehives, or it will also create some workplace for new beekeepers to arrive because there's a real demand for local honey, for real honey, let's say. There's a real demand. So it will encourage more beekeepers to become beekeepers, actually. So that's very important. So it's good for beekeepers to be sold out. Don't think, oh, I have to have honey all year round to keep my clients. No, it's good to be sold out. It's good that, yeah, people love your product so much and the demand is there because there's so much import of honey. So the demand is there. It exists already. It's just that people are not very aware of this, and we're never seeing in the news that fake honey is the biggest threat for beekeepers nowadays, for bees, for our relationship as humans with bees. So this is a really important thing to understand if you want to keep on a good track, good natural track of working with bees for real, learning from them, having all those opportunities coming from the pollen and propolis because we work for real with bees. We're not just selling sugar honey. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I hope that has been enlightening and that you learned something today. Of course, there's tons of data behind all this. I could maybe someday gather some data and give it more officially, but it's important to be aware and don't use that information to stop people from eating honey or having interest with the bees. That information is out there for us to understand that we have to eat more locally. And if the price of local honey is higher, you know what? This is normal because this is real honey, and fake honey is sold for almost nothing. And people sell it at a similar price. Well, the real producers make way less money because that costs them to produce honey. They have a lot of cost to produce it. So they need more money for their honey. They need it. And oh la la, it's a terrible topic. So anyway, I hope you get the idea and really source your local honey for real and talk with your beekeeper. Go find your beekeeper. It's so important, and your beekeeper will be happy to tell you a few things and that you want his product and so on. And yeah, spread this word as much as you can, as long as you're not disgusting people from eating honey and other bee products, because we have to make this connection with bees and humans stronger and not go away from the bees and say, oh, it's not good to work with the bees. You see, there's a real importance of keeping the connection with the bees there, because there's beauty with that connection with the bees. I hope with my channel you're realizing this more and more. There's a real treasure there, and that is what we have to keep alive and going. So thank you very much for watching, and see you another time for another Apitherapy video.